Hello and welcome to another episode of The Standings, where we review the sports standings except we're sitting. I'm Daniel and we are joined by the OG crew today. We've got Cameron and Morgan with us.
And it's so great to be back, and I'm ready to look into some March Madness here. We are in the championship time. So, Florida and Houston, how do we feel about this? Who is your champion and why?
So, I'd like to live in the past right now because we're going to preview these games that happened before the national championship. So, I saw Duke Houston, and as a Duke fan, let me tell you, it did not go well. So, Duke was up 9 with 2 minutes left. They were in the driver's seat. It's national champion. It was party time. I was already ready to celebrate. And then tragedy struck. Up 9 with 2 minutes left. Houston gives them a technical foul. So now they have 2 free throws to put them up by 9. Then Houston gets the ball after all of that, and they hit a nice 3. Okay, whatever. They're up by 6. But time has ticked now. They're up 6 with 40 seconds left. Then Houston gets the ball after another Duke possession that was failed, and the laziest pump fake ever creates a wide open Houston 3. Wide open shot, they make it. Now Duke's up 3 with 30 seconds left. They call a timeout because now Houston is in the driver's seat to win the game. They come out of the timeout and can't even inbound the ball. They can't even inbound the ball. Now Houston gets another 3, maybe, but it doesn't go in. Oh, look there comes a Houston player out of the blue for a dunk. An offensive rebound. Can't even get a rebound, this team. So now Duke's up 1. They're up 1, and now Coach Shire has to draw up a play after another timeout. He draws up what Cooper Flagg said. He drew up the play. Coach Shire did. Comes out of the timeout. It's an ISO for Cooper Flagg, as if he is an NBA star, and we know how well it went against Kentucky earlier in the season when you gave Cooper Flagg the ball and just said, find a way to get open and shoot it. Don't share the wealth or anything. Misses the shot, and then nobody talks about this, but they dumbly foul Houston to not only put them in the driver's seat once again, but make it so that they are favored to win the game now. Houston, unlike Duke in the clutch, who hit 1 for 3 on free throws, hits both of their free throws. Houston is up now, and they secure the game. They have fouls to give, so they foul Duke. Duke can't make their free throws, and then Houston wins the game. I don't know what this was. I really don't understand. But as a Duke fan, this is the worst collapse I've ever seen of a team. And I always go back to what I said last week, is they were young and inexperienced heading into the tournament, and it really showed in these final minutes. They thought they had the game won. They did not. Even Tyrese Proctor, on that last shot of the game that was horrendous, went over the backboard, showed no poise in those last 2 minutes, especially at the free throw line. This team needs to be better if they're going to go back, but now you're getting rid of Cooper Flagg. It doesn't look like it. What do we think?
It's pure comedy. It is up there with 28-3 in my opinion.
And honestly, I love how we touched on this last week a little bit when I was like, I think Duke is going to win this tournament. And Dermot was like, not so fast. He called it. Dermot did call it. He was like, Houston has this. And historically speaking, we see this over and over again. These better defenses are outplaying these fast offenses. And Houston has one of the best defenses in this tournament. So that's where this really lays out here.
It's going to be an interesting dynamic because with Florida now coming in, they are the most prolific offense in the tournament going against Houston. So for Duke to call an ISO play at the end of the game, it shows Florida what not to do. It's to draw up a play that's going to confuse the defense because Florida now, they have a great chance to win this after they played a terrific game against Auburn. So with Houston now, they have a great defense, but I'm not sure if it's going to hold up with that Florida offense.
So what I'm saying here is I'm going to go a little bit opposite of you. I think Houston really does have a chance here winning this tournament against Florida because Florida's getting some real big wear and tear with them. They're unreliable with the rebounds and turnovers, and Houston's really going to feed into this. And this Houston team is hungry. They have not won a title, and they are just ready to take on Florida in this slowdown that they have going on here. The Cougars are good at locking down in this tight, near-end game, so that's really where I think you're going to see Houston prevail.
Walter Clayton Jr. is a player to watch in this matchup because if they can just put the brakes on him this tournament, who he's been terrific and making every single shot, looks like Steph Curry out there with some of his moves. If they can put the brakes on him, they realistically do have a chance. I'm just not sure because if Duke can score 70, nearly 70, against Houston, it would have been nice if they scored 70. But if they can score nearly 70 against Houston, it shows that these better offenses are going to take advantage of this Houston team right now.
It'll be really interesting to see. This is going to be a really great championship. I could already feel it. But I say we turn gears a little bit. Let's look into the women's tournament. We saw a beautiful game from UConn and Paige Beckers. So where does this UConn team rank for you? And what have the last two games said about Paige?
I think this UConn team has to be one of the best. And it's not just Paige that made this team what they are. They dominated in those last two games. I talked about point margins last week with them. And then they finish out the tournament at plus 57. That is absurd. That is unheard of. So as far as dominance in this tournament, their closest game was by 14. And many would say if Juju was there, they still would have won that game. They dominated this tournament, and someone that I really want to highlight is Sarah Strong, who is surging as an athlete in this tournament. And we'll get to for the coming years. We talked about it last week with Lily, and she said that we're going to get to watch the stories of these players. We're not going to get to see the story of Cooper Flagg anymore. He's going straight to the draft. We get to see Sarah Strong really mesh into this UConn team for the coming years, and that is so exciting to me. Another aspect of it, I want to talk about Coach Gino. Why do we not talk about this guy as maybe the greatest coach in all of sports, the winningest coach, the greatest coach in all of sports? I mean, the only thing we could say is that UConn hasn't won since 2016, but it's not like UConn hasn't been good in these years. And Gino puts on full display how he can go toe-to-toe with a coach like Dawn Staley.
So they've been consistently a top 10 team in the country every year since he's been there. The 12th national championship all time for them. This is an insane team.
And with those 12 national championships, they are all under him. He is a star-studded coach, and this is a great franchise. This is a great school, and UConn is just a great place to be. And looking at Paige Beckers, she is just one of the top players for college, and she has so many trophies. She was AP Player of the Year. She has All-American honors. She has a national championship. She is going to be great in the future, and I love these new storylines that are coming up with college basketball going into the WNBA, seeing everybody's growth and progression. And I say that's kind of where the NBA does fall short because you're not knowing these names coming into the draft. But when we're seeing names like Paige and Juju and all these other names, it's so great to see going in.
One thing I want to talk about is this team did not have one close game in the tournament. They were 18-0 in conference play heading into the tournament compared to USC, which was 17-1. I know they lost that matchup head-to-head, and that's why USC earned the 1 seed. But when we got to the Elite Eight, before USC and them even played, many had them favored to win the tournament. So I'm just not sure going into this tournament how they weren't a 1 seed when we look back on it in hindsight. We understand why they weren't, but this team just dominated in a way we haven't seen since we just saw Ohio State do it. And even with Ohio State, some of those games were within reach. None of these games were even within reach for this team.
The awareness on the court for this team is insane. And I love seeing like how Paige Beckers plays because she kind of brings volleyball plays into it, and you're not seeing that anywhere else. She had literally set the ball up. It was passed to her. She set it up playing volleyball. Everyone was reacting. They were like, this is insane. Like, what sport is she playing? Her IQ is insane. Her team is so aware, and that is what really brought UConn up this time.
Another player is Ozzie Fudd, and no one will talk about her, but I'll talk about her on this show. She was great in those last two games and had more points than Beckers in those last two games. It was almost like Beckers was sidelined, and the other players were able to shine, like Sarah Strong and Ozzie Fudd. So it's going to be interesting to see this team going forward as Fudd and Beckers will leave. But now Sarah Strong, she's going to be the captain, and she looks great so far. So we will have to follow her story as we go along.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
My name is Abby Blancato, and I'm an anchor for Royal Studios. Right now, behind the set of the show, you are watching The Standings. You can catch me on Royals Weekly every Friday, where we cover all things University of Scranton. From campus clubs, events, and sports news, you'll get everything you need. Until then, back to The Standings.
Welcome back from the break. We're going to talk about some hockey now, and we are, of course, joined by Jake. He's usually our graphics guy, but today he's here to talk some hockey. So our first topic is, for you, where does Ovechkin land all time, and what were your thoughts on the ceremony as he breaks Gretzky's all-time goal record?
So in terms of all time, I think this definitely solidifies him as the most prolific goal scorer of all time. But in terms of greatness levels, he's nowhere even close to Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky has over 55 official NHL records and hundreds more unofficial records. Just to go down the list, 1,963 assists, 2,857 points, 92 single-season goal record, 163 single-season assists, and 215 single-season points, which nobody has even come close to 200 points since then. This record has been held by him for over 31 years. He has more 4-point games in his career than he has 0-point games. So, yeah, I definitely think in terms of the greatness levels, he's still not close to Gretzky, but he is in that top 10, top 5 conversation. In terms of the ceremony, I think it was a little weird how they had it in the middle of the game, but it didn't really interrupt the flow of the game. The Isles were up 2-1 when the ceremony took place, and they ended up winning the game 4-1, so... yeah, not much else on that. I was glad it happened. I think Wayne Gretzky was a good sport about it. It really showed the respect that hockey players have for each other and within the sport, and having respect for the game. I always say that the NHL isn't like the NBA. It's not like the NFL where people are playing for money. Like, you notice NHL players don't get paid as much as they do in other sports. So it really just shows that they're playing to play hockey, so.
When I'm talking about Ovechkin, everyone knew this was coming. This has been talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks. If you're looking on any sports site, they're talking about him. And this is hard to do, but he did pass it. This is a very big accomplishment for him. And I say if he gets a Stanley Cup this year, this will really boost him up. But he's already been in the top 10 player conversation for years now. This isn't anything new from him. But when we're talking about the ceremony, I just had the honor of watching it 20 minutes ago. I thought it was never ending. It was in the middle of the game. I was like, can you please just wait until after the game? I think it could have been done so much better after the game. And it's a bit more meaningful then. You don't need to pause the game or anything. You could just keep it going, But one of the people was up there and said, greatness is now part of your name. That's been part of his name. This is not anything new. What do you mean it's now part of his name? So, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the ceremony, but I do think he deserves his flowers, and that's where it is right now.
So the achievement's amazing, and it comes 31 years after Gretzky did it, and 31 years from when Gretzky did it is when Gordie Howe did it. The days almost align perfectly, so to me that means that there will be another player to break this record in the future. As far as the ceremony goes, I agree with you. It was never ending. It was drawn out. I counted 20 minutes in my own head that this ceremony went on. He was shaking hands with players on the other team. I don't understand this. The Islanders are still alive for the playoffs. They still are a meaningful team. It wasn't like this happened with the Sharks or any other team that wasn't alive for the playoffs. This is the middle of the game. This was drawn up by the network as the Great Chase. It was just a way for people to watch hockey that didn't watch hockey before. I think it's quite embarrassing because LeBron broke the all-time scoring record and didn't get this amount of flowers. The game did not stop for this amount of time. So I find it quite ridiculous as far as that goes. Let's move into our next topic and talk about the NHL playoffs. So Jake, what teams are you most excited for going into the playoffs, and who looks like your eventual champion right now?
Well, if you couldn't tell by my attire, I have Vegas going pretty far in the playoffs this year. They're right now one of those teams like they were a few years ago when they initially won their first cup, where they don't look like the favorite, but they are a favorite, They're a very well-rounded team. They've got multiple 30-goal scorers, and everybody else, they've got 3 or 4 20-goal scorers. In terms of points, Jack Eichel is leading the team with 93 points. He's got 27 goals, 66 assists on the season. They've also got 5 other 50-plus point scorers. Mark Stone, to name one, 67 points. He's a big assist guy. Their goaltender, Adin Hill, just got a big 6-year contract, which I was a little bit skeptical about at first, but it seemed to work out for them so far. He's top 10 in wins this year, goals allowed average, and even shutouts. So Vegas is definitely one of my favorites. I would like to see, actually, a rematch of the 2017-2018 Stanley Cup Finals between the Washington Capitals and the Vegas Golden Knights.
Some teams I'm excited for are 2 teams in the East. So the Florida Panthers, obviously having Marchand this year with the whole trade debacle that we covered a few weeks ago, I'm really interested to see how they will conquer the Stanley Cup here. But also, the Washington Capitals, obviously, everybody knows this is such a big team to beat. And I'm excited to see these big names. I'm excited to see where they come out. But in the West, Dallas is a pretty strong contender. But for this year, the Stanley Cup, it's going to be beat the veterans. You want to beat these good, accomplished people, and that's what we're going to see this year.
You're forgetting to mention the other Florida team, the Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
They have won back-to-back cups in 2020 and 2019. And why do you think the Panthers would be even better than them?
I'm intrigued by the Panthers because of this big trade, and we're seeing them doing better with Marchand, and he really needs this Stanley Cup.
Because they're going for their back-to-back again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go for the other Florida team instead of them.
I'm going to focus on that same division. I'm going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, honestly, with the Panthers making that move, kind of fell under the radar, even though they are still atop that division and atop the conference right now. They have John Tavares, who's having a career year with 36 goals and 70 points, while having Nylander, Marner, and Austin Matthews. They are a contender in this conference right now, and I think they're going to make it really far. I think finally the Maple Leafs will break their playoff curse and will actually make it to a Stanley Cup where they haven't before. And if Austin Matthews isn't in the conversation already with Connor McDavid, a Stanley Cup run would solidify him as being in that conversation.
I think that's interesting that you have Toronto in this. I actually have no faith in the Maple Leafs just from years past, although Boston is not in the playoffs this year as of right now. Actually, they're eliminated from contention,
yep.
if I'm not mistaken there. But we could go off the back of that to more Canadian teams. Winnipeg is number one in the league right now in terms of points, in terms of standings, in terms of pretty much everything. But they're another team similar to Toronto that hasn't had much playoff success lately. They seem to do this every single year where they're one of the top teams in the league, and then they get there and they just blow it in the first round, maybe the second if they're lucky. I think they're really leaning heavy on their goaltender Connor Hellebuck right now, who has 7 shutouts, leads the league in pretty much every goaltender stat there is right now. But I think they're leaning too heavily on him. He hasn't been great in the playoffs recently. The whole team hasn't been great in the playoffs recently. I have little faith in Winnipeg. I have little faith in most of these Canadian teams, to be honest, which is kind of sad to say. But
Yeah, they haven't won a cup since like the 80s.
No.
They're going like 40 plus years, 30 years on having no cups. Like, this is your sport, Canada. Get better.
yeah, they've had a couple of appearances. Like we had Edmonton last year. We had Montreal in 2020 in the bubble. But so far, nothing for Canada.
They've been a great regular season team, and we've seen that with a lot of teams. But as soon as they get to the playoffs, like the Maple Leafs, it just falls apart. And it's not really understandable because they have the talent. It just doesn't transfer somehow, and it might just be because these guys are inexperienced. It just comes down to something like that. We're going to head to a commercial break. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, it's Sam Sunny, a co-anchor of Royal Studios. I'm currently behind the scenes of the show you're watching, The Standings. Check me out next week on the latest episode of Scranton Scope, where I'll tell you what's going on in the Scranton community and how you can get involved. We cover events like sports, movies, music, and more. Scope has everything that you're looking for. See you there. Now back to the standings.
Welcome back from the break. We are joined by our editor, Ethan. We have another part of our team joining the show. It is just so exciting. It's a great show. We're going to talk about the Ironman 70.3 Oceanside. I want to ask you, can you give the audience a background of what goes into a triathlon and tell us the impact of this event that just happened?
So listen, there's a lot of preparation that comes into this event. It's the first North American series in the Pro Series. A lot of big names at this event. Oceanside's a really popular race. You've got Lionel Sanders, Rudy Vonberg, the Norwegians, Blumenfelt and Gustav, Ben Canute. All the big names in triathlon are here. Some of them were at the T100 this weekend in Singapore as well, but really a stacked field. Lionel Sanders came out on top, with a really notoriously cold swim to start it off. The water temperature was 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Very cold. I looked at some of the things that Patrick Long said. He couldn't feel his feet until kilometer 10 on the run. That's a lot. There's a big challenge there when it comes to, getting in the water and trying to get warm, but you just can't. So a lot of the great swimmers came out early on the first part of the swim. Greg Harper, Magnus Manor, Seth Ryder, Rudy Vonberg, Blumenfelt were only a minute down, so not too much of a deficit. And Lionel our eventual winner was 3 minutes and 11 seconds down, eventually actually being more down out of transition 1 with 3 minutes and 32 seconds. And so, you have to transition from the swim to the bike. You got to take your wetsuit off. Take some time. And he took his time. 20 seconds from the leader of the race. Going into the bike, Lionel was pretty steady, right? Justin Riel went out really fast, attacking on one of the climbs. Nobody really followed him. And some packs started to form with Rudy Vonberg and Gustav Iden. Really solid packs, but Lionel just raced his own race, which I think was really smart. I want to talk about Christian Blumenfeld, though, because he was out biking almost the entire field at the first 12 so miles, but then he got a flat tire. That's one of the things in triathlon you just can't control. I mean, it's you take a bad line, get a nail in your tire, there goes your race. It took him 14 minutes to get a new tire. Where are the neutral service cars? You look at cycling races, professional there always is a Shimano neutral racing car, and where was that during this race? 14 minutes down. So eventually he got back in, but, his day was kind of over at that point. But going into the run, really strong pack forming at the front. Rudy Vonberg, Seth Ryder, Gustav Iden, by mile 4 were all together at the front of the race. Not much to catch up there. Lionel was 3 minutes and 48 seconds down. You're looking at that as a viewer and you're like, this guy is not catching them. But he puts on 5 minute and 23 second mile per mile pace on the run and catches them by mile 7 and just takes off. And we were all just kind of in awe about how well he was running. He knows this course so well. He's won it 3 times before, but the pace that he was putting on was blazing. It was incredible to watch. Seth Ryder tried to go with him, but couldn't hold it. Rudy Vonberg started running his own race, hanging back with Gustav Iden, eventually pulling away from him. Seth Ryder falling back, eventually finishing 4th. Lionel Sanders charging to the win, with Rudy Vonberg coming in second. Not too far down, only 41 seconds, and Gustav Iden coming in about 20 seconds later. Really a great race.
So what is next for these athletes?
So the Pro Series, we're going to see it. It's going to keep going throughout the year. A lot of the notable races are in North America. We have St. George 70.3. That's going to be in May. Ironman Texas is about 3 weeks out. Really big race with some really great names coming to that. We have 70.3 Eagleman, which I'm actually racing. It's going to be a great race. Always some weird conditions there. And then Lake Placid is the last one in North America. That's a big, big race before the World Championships in France, Nice, and Kona. Patrick Long has won Ironman Texas, and he's going to be racing it again in these coming weeks. He didn't have a great performance here at Oceanside, but I think he's going to do good at Texas. That's his mojo. He's great in warm weather. Wasn't the type of weather that he wanted at Oceanside. I think we're going to see really good performance from him. We were missing some people at Oceanside, like Trevor Foley. He was dealing with some sickness a couple of weeks ago. Really great athlete. I've had the chance to work with him a little bit in my own triathlon, but he's a really great athlete, really great runner. I think we're going to see some really good stuff from him in these coming weeks. He said Lionel's coming too, so we could see a great performance from that. But that's just going to set up the rest of the Pro Series for us, and we're going to see a great year of triathlon racing.
A lot of the viewers might not know what goes into the preparation for all this. Like, what is, like, the diet and, like, the plan that you have to follow for this?
There is really, there's a plan for everybody that, you follow it individually. Lionel is one of the great examples. He's gone through so many different training mentalities, from high volume to low volume and high intensity. It kind of just depends on what the athlete needs to fuel their performance and what's going to make them the best triathlete that they can be. That some of these guys are putting in 40-hour weeks of training, and Lionel has been talking about he's only putting in 18 hours sometimes. That's a big drop off. But with more high intensity, it seems to be working for him because he won this last race. So it's kind of just like, whoever feels that they can do it one way and whoever feels they can do it another, that's what it takes.
That is like a big difference between like the NFL, where offensive linemen, you're going to have 40 Big Macs and you're going to hit the gym like twice a day and call it a day, and you're going to work on your footwork, do whatever. Like, that is a stellar difference.
And as Ethan said before, he is participating in one of these events. He's a heck of an athlete. Just saw him run the half marathon this past Sunday. I want to thank you for being on and giving us some knowledge about the Ironman events and everything that goes into a triathlon. It's great for the audience to get to know a sport that they've never seen before.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for being on. We will be right back after this.
My name is Abby Blancato, and I'm an anchor for Royal Studios. Right now, behind the set of the show, you are watching The Standings. You can catch me on Royals Weekly every Friday, where we cover all things University of Scranton. From campus clubs, events, and sports news, you'll get everything you need. Until then, back to The Standings.
Let's move straight into our next topic, and our last topic, that being the Eastern Conference NBA playoffs that's about to happen. We've seen the seeding kind of mesh together and form that we can kind of see matchups, but not quite yet. So going into this, who makes it out of the play-in, and who is your sneaky contender in the East?
So, my sneaky contender in the East is the Milwaukee Bucks. Are we surprised? No, we are not. We are not repeating last year's situation where the Bucks lost to the Pacers first round. Giannis was out due to a calf injury. Dame was out for an Achilles injury, and that's kind of what we're seeing now. But Giannis is still playing. He's still playing. He may be injured, but Dame is out. But luckily, Bobby Portis is coming back after his 25-game suspension. We have Brook Lopez. We have this core team that is ready to take the playoffs. This is their 9th consecutive playoffs. And right now they're 5th in the East. And they beat the Suns, they beat the Sixers, they beat the Heat. They are on a winning streak, and this is what we need from the Bucks going into this tournament. And they just played the Pelicans makeup game. Giannis did not play, and they still won. So they are still winning without Giannis right now. But their positioning in the playoffs is so important. If they are to play the Pacers in the playoffs, the Bucks will probably win just because in a series against the Pacers during the 2025 season, they're 3-1. If the Bucks have to play the Knicks, the Bucks are out of the tournament. I can tell you that right away. The Bucks are not beating the Knicks. They're 0-3 against the Knicks this season, and it's not looking very good for them. So it all depends on where the seeding ranks. But a player for the Bucks, Kevin Porter Jr., has really been stepping it up without Dame there. So this is a really important player to highlight. But when we're looking on the other side of things here, I think the Pacers could be a little bit of a sneaky contender, because if I think the Bucks are going to beat the Pacers, that's fine. But if the Pacers play the Knicks, the Pacers will beat the Knicks. The Knicks are inconsistent, and the Pacers are here to play. We've seen them last year, and the Pacers beat the Bucks. They beat the Knicks. They are ready to play. This is a great team to pull ahead.
The Pacers haven't beat a healthy Bucks or a healthy Knicks team, you were forgetting to mention. And also, you mentioned New Orleans in your segment. Who cares? New Orleans sucks.
They still won, though. They still won. That would be terrible if they lost going into the playoffs against New Orleans.
That's true, but it's a 82-game season. Mm-hmm. One game dropping, it's whatever. I know it's late in the season where it matters, but still. But the Knicks are the team that's going to come out of the East with OG Anunoby finally coming into form, averaging 30 points per game over the last 5 games. Where the hell was this the past 2 years? I don't know. Probably injuries, but yet again, the Knicks could beat anybody when fully healthy. OG could completely shut down Jason Tatum. Probably have to worry about Jaylen Brown and Porzingis, but that's what Mitchell Robinson's for. For Porzingis and Jaylen Brown, it will probably destroy us. But either way, I like our odds against the Celtics.
So I'll talk about the play-in first, and then I'll pump the brakes on what's going on over here. So the play-in, I have the Heat and the Bulls actually coming out of there. They're the 9-10 right now, so I have them getting better as the season goes on with young stars like Josh Giddey and Kobe White for the Bulls and Khalil Ware. And we have Davion Mitchell, who's also been a surging star that's on that team right now. I just have more faith in the coaching that's on Miami, and I have faith in the Bulls and their offense that's been prolific right now. It's been a really good offense in the league, and they've been contending with these teams. So I have the Magic and Hawks getting out of there. And then the real contender in this conference, and the sneaky contender, surprisingly, I'm not sure why, is the Boston Celtics. What are we talking about the Knicks and the Bucks? The Celtics are 6-0 against both of those teams. They are the sneaky contender somehow. They're 2-2 against the Cavs, so the Cavs might be their only kryptonite in that conference. But we saw what happened to the Cavs last year. We saw the Celtics, who are a returning champion. They shouldn't have trouble taking the East, and they should end up in the finals against a team like the Thunder, who they have struggled against, been 0-2, but statistically, they are the second best team in the league right under the Thunder. So they should be contending with every other team and beating them easily, other than the Thunder. They should wipe the East. I don't think it would be surprising if we saw the Thunder just dominate the West and the Celtics dominate the East and then get the finals that we all thought we probably would. I'm tired of hearing about the Lakers. I'm tired of hearing about the Bucks, the Knicks. Oh, they're getting healthy. Oh, they're streaking at the right time. The Celtics and the Thunder are the best teams in the league right now.
I will agree with you there, and I will disagree with you. There is no way the Knicks are beating the Celtics, especially if I think the Pacers are beating the Knicks. There is no way they're beating the Celtics. I think that's something we need to talk about right now because I just don't have faith in this Knicks team at all. They are inconsistent. They blow leads. They are not doing well. So I understand where you're coming from, that the Celtics are a sneaky contender. I don't think there's anything sneaky about them. I think people know who they are, and they're just like, oh, it's the Celtics. We hear them every year.
My thing is there's so much talk about the Cavs and how good they are in that conference, and we know who the proven team is. We haven't seen Donovan Mitchell been able to get the Utah Jazz over the hump or the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's just ridiculous. I don't like the talk of the Boston Celtics being a lesser team in this conference, and even if the Knicks and Bucks are healthy, they are not beating a fully healthy Boston Celtics team, even a Boston Celtics minus one starter. The Boston Celtics are stacked from top to bottom, and they should be the favorites maybe to win the finals as a whole because we don't know that much about the Thunder, and the Thunder have not proven to us that they can beat Luka Doncic.
If the East is at least competitive and they take Boston to at least 5 or 6 games, maybe even Game 7, every maybe 2 series, they can get worn out. That team is not really sustained for long-term series.
It would be a success if you got the Boston Celtics to a 5, 6, or 7 game series. They right now are the underrated team for me. And all these other teams in the conference, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. We will have to see how it plays out, and we will keep you up to date on the coverage of that. That's it for the standings.
Thank you for watching the standings.
Make sure to check out other Royal Studios productions such as Royals Weekly and the Scranton Scope.
Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed.
We'll see you next week.